Hello today, guys. Welcome back to the Rodeo of Reason podcast. This is episode 4, I believe now. Today's guest is Bobo. So thank you for coming on today, Bobo.
Of course, I'm very excited.
All right. So the first question I had is, when did you start debating philosophy, or just debating in general?
So I started debating in general, like, oh my gosh, so long ago. I joined my first debate team when I was in elementary school,
Oh
like
wow.
around fifth grade, fourth or fifth grade, I think.
Mhm.
That's when I first learned how to debate, and that was it was nothing was online. It was like, you prepped you were given a topic, you
Yeah.
had a month to prepare as a team, and then you go in person to some school where a bunch of other schools were going and then like debate in a tournament in person type thing.
Wait, that's so cool.
So yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I did that through middle school and high school. They were just in-person tournaments. It was online for a little bit over COVID, but then it went back to in-person. And they're mostly political topics,
Mhm.
nothing super heavily related to philosophy.
Ah, okay.
And then once I graduated high school, I kind of stopped debating because the college that I went to didn't really have a debate program. So I just kind of stopped.
Mm.
And I was very sad because I'd been doing it for my whole life and I really missed it.
Yeah.
So I kind of fell into the TikTok debate space.
Mhm.
Um, and that's when I was first really introduced to like, the abortion TikTok debate space.
Yeah.
Um, that's where I met, the people that I still debate with to this day, and they kind of introduced me to the really like philosophically heavy debating,
Mm.
which I want to say was like maybe a year and a half to 2 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's yeah. So that was longer than I expected. To be fair, that's actually a while. Wait, so
Yeah.
you didn't really you weren't necessarily just interested in philosophy. You kind of got brought into it by your friends then.
Yeah, like I've always been indirectly interested in
Mm.
philosophy. Like,
Yeah.
um, I was always that kid asking, those existential questions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Always wanting to have really deep conversations with my parents. But I never took like a philosophy class. And the deepest that it went in my debating, before TikTok, like the tournaments,
Hmm.
was, at the beginning of a topic, we might establish some kind of value framework. And usually it would
Yes.
be like utilitarianism or something.
Ah, okay.
Um, where we at the beginning we would say like, hey, we're, valuing this debate off of utilitarian grounds. So this is why, this topic, would or wouldn't help in terms of providing utility for society or something like that.
Ah, okay.
But that's the deepest it ever got. And so when I moved into the abortion debates, I realized how like philosophically heavy it was. And so my friends kind of taught me everything I know in regards to like, the academic stuff about philosophy.
Yeah. Do you ever put any time aside in your day to just do some reading on philosophy now, or do you just kind of learn when you're debating and around your friends?
Yeah, almost all of my learning has been through direct practice.
Hmm.
Debating with my friends, observing the way that my friends have been debating, and then, we'll have phone calls every now and then to kind of discuss topics more in depth,
Mm.
to get a better understanding. I've read like a couple papers,
Yeah.
but I don't read as much as I think most philosophy debaters do.
Hmm.
Most of that is just because I don't have the time.
Yeah, that's fair
But
enough.
another aspect of it is I learn better by doing it instead of by reading it anyway. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's
yeah.
fair enough. Um, what's your daily routine? Because aren't you at college right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I am just finishing out a semester at school.
Hmm.
Um, I'm a junior by like year, but I'm a senior by credit. So I'm planning on graduating next fall.
Okay.
Um, I am getting a Bachelor of Science in forensic science, and I also have a minor and concentration in biology. So it's pretty much just forensic biology. Um, my daily routine isn't super structured because my classes are at different times every day.
Hmm.
But usually it's just, going to class, studying, trying to find some time to debate in between with my friends,
Hmm.
um, kind of normal stuff like that.
Have you ever gone over anything about abortion in terms of your biology classes then, or? Not
So
really.
not a lot. It's come up. Like for example, I took a genetics class,
Okay.
and when we were going over chromosomal disorders like Down syndrome,
Mhm.
for example, there was, a couple points in the chapter where it was mentioned that like a lot of children who are diagnosed with Down syndrome end up getting aborted.
Yeah.
But it was less of like a, you know, ethical type thing and more of just like a statistic, like this is just what happens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Um, that's kind of the extent that it gets brought up is we don't really have a lot of ethical conversations. It's more just like, hey, you have this kind of genetic disorder that you're learning about. It just happens to be the case that, abortion is the decision lots of parents make if they get news about this genetic disorder type of situation.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, is it hard to designate time to debating with like your other priorities, like as you're at college a lot, and you know?
Yeah, it kind of depends on when in the semester I am.
Mm.
Like earlier in the semester, I had so much going on, like with exams and everything. I'm prepping to start two different research projects in the spring,
Mm.
which has a lot of background work. So it was very difficult to find time then.
Yeah.
But like for example, now classes have ended and it's finals week right now. So I have a lot more free time because I don't have to go to classes. I'm really just studying. You know what I mean? So it
Yeah.
just it just depends on the time in the semester.
Ah, okay. Yeah. All right. So you've got like a lot of free time now then.
Yeah, now I do, but if you asked me maybe a month ago, I'd be like, I have no time.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay. Moving on to the philosophy questions, just to start off with. What is your like normative framework? Like what do you follow? What's your normative framework?
Yeah. So I don't have like an official name for it. I can
Mhm.
really only describe it to you because this is something that I formulated with the guidance of some of my friends. It's not necessarily something I've read in a paper. It's just
Okay.
kind of my analysis about things. But I basically take it that inaction is good if it supports flourishing,
Yeah.
and inaction is bad if it does not support flourishing or it goes against flourishing. Um,
Yeah.
that's pretty much just the standard is
Yeah. I would.
flourishing.
Yeah, I'd say like mine's very similar. Um, it's like kind of comes under natural law theory, but like
Mhm.
it would just be like a secular version without the use of God because I don't really like believe in like an Abrahamic religion myself. So
Yeah.
you kind of have to just focus on reasoning itself. But there was just so many like difficulties and challenges I ran into with it, which I still don't really know how to like clarify today. So I was hoping to maybe go over some and just see how you would like answer them because I'm still really confused on them.
Yeah, no
Um,
problem. It gets kind of
yeah.
complicated because the terms that at least I tend to use in
Mhm.
things like argumentation or explaining my view is not the way that people typically use the
Yeah.
terms. Like when you say flourishing,
Mhm.
a lot of people, without explaining it, a lot of people, you know, have this idea that that's something that's really subjective. It's like what
Yes.
makes you happy and what you want to do. But that's really not what I mean by flourishing. So
Yeah.
a lot of it ends up just needing being to clarify terms.
Yeah.
Um, but of course, the concepts themselves can also be kind of difficult. So I'd be happy to go over that.
Yeah, well, I normally just took like flourishing in the view to just be like if some subject has a disposition and like if it fulfills this, it would just be good. If it frustrates the disposition, it would just be bad. Um, I don't know if that's like similar to how you use the term flourishing or not.
It's similar, but I don't think that's always the case
Yeah.
because, for example, humans have dispositions to also do bad things, right? That are not
Mhm.
um, supporting their flourishing.
Mhm.
Um, like you could give any number of examples, right? Like humans have dispositions to like cheat on their loved one, their partners. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Um, that's something that humans tend to do, but that's also not good for the flourishing of humans. So I don't think every disposition is necessarily going to be in support of something's flourishing.
Mhm.
Um, but like it can be.
Yeah, I would agree to
Certain
that. To be fair,
things.
I didn't clarify specifically, but in natural law theory, there's these like, this is what I want to talk to you about as well. Like, there's these like basic goods that is like
Mhm.
it's like one of them, for example, is like life. Another one is like kind of using like rationality in like a obviously
Sure.
rational way. But the thing is, these like basic goods or these intrinsic goods, it's like I don't know necessarily where they come from. It's like you can say like you've got rationality, but it's like
Mhm.
why or I use it in a good way, if that makes sense. But then even asking that question would just be like undermining like asking that question because I'm using rationality. So like I don't really understand why. Like, I don't know how you would answer that question either. Like if someone just says like
Yeah.
why ought I use rationality in a good way when I can use it in just like an irrational way.
Yeah, I think it comes down to like for example, when we think about the types of actions that we tend towards in life. Not even like where you're kind of thinking about like, oh, am I following my normative framework? No, like just
Hmm.
take an average person who does not
Yeah.
usually think about these things. What kind of things do they do in their life?
Hmm.
If we observe that, the kinds of things that we gravitate towards are decisions that help us and help other people. Now, of course, there's going to be an asterisk on that because not
Hmm.
everyone's perfect
Yeah.
and we are flawed and we make bad decisions all the time. But generally, we try to do things that are good for us and good for other people.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, you have to deliberate rationally to do that.
Hmm.
Like, I don't really understand how someone can consistently do things that help them be, say like productive and successful members of society without thinking rationally. Um,
Yeah.
does that make sense?
It makes sense, but then I'll just ask like you're saying like the general majority of people will be like following those set of norms in society, maybe like forming relationships and doing this thing. Um, but what about just like you pick out just one specific person who just doesn't do this and is just like
Yeah.
an absolute psychopath, who just
Yeah.
I just don't know what I'd say to someone who just brings that up.
Yeah, so when we take someone who kind of disregards, we can say something like societal norms, but something
Hmm.
even farther than that is disregards what we tend to think is good or
Hmm.
something. Like if you go to the extreme, like a psychopath who finds joy in the pain of others, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
This is the kind of person that has at least what I would call like like a disorder of, whether it be their brain chemistry, whether it be the way they were raised or something,
hmm,
is it's just a disorder of, the I don't know how else to describe it. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
just the way people are supposed to be. And so when you have someone like that, regardless of what they think is good for them or what they think is good for other people, or even if they just don't even care what is good for them and other people.
yeah,
That's why I think there's kind of like a fact of the matter about this situation, like flourishing and stuff, where, say you're walking down the street
hmm,
and you see this person next to you. It's very possible that you can, grab a group of people where they're going to look at the person next to them on the street and they're going to be like, I don't really care what happens to this person. I don't know them. They're a stranger.
hmm,
You know what I mean? Lots of people think like that.
yeah,
But that doesn't mean now that because they don't care that it's okay for them to do whatever they want, even if they think it's okay for them to do whatever they want to them.
mm.
Does that make sense? Like it's just
Yeah, I guess it makes sense, but I just don't know where like the grounding comes from. So like, if I ask you the question, yeah, let's just say like, humanity has never like, this so basically just flip the society norms. Let's just say that it was never the way that we like was like developing. We just weren't social animals basically, yeah,
Mhm.
and everyone was just like murdering each other because this is like what we've seen for like a long time, and it's always been like this, and this is like the society norms as such. Would that just be the thing that you like ought to do then? Like, I wouldn't know how to
no, I
answer
don't
that.
think I don't think that's the case
Hmm.
because that's not even that far-fetched because that's how society used to be. You know what
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
There are societies around the world right now where that's just the
Yeah.
way that it is.
Hmm.
I don't think if we had a world, for example, where every single person on this planet thought that like raping kids was okay,
Yeah.
that it would then be okay. You know what I mean? There's
Hmm.
something missing or there's some disconnect where I just don't understand how you can get to that point through rational deliberation. Does
Mm.
that make sense?
Yeah, I guess so. But like, what would be the thing saying that this is like wrong? Where would it come from? I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, because it would be a detriment to the flourishing of not only the kids, but also the people doing the action. Um, because what a lot of people also don't understand about flourishing is that your flourishing is directly tied to the flourishing of those around you. So even
Hmm.
if you think that you're doing really well and you're being really successful, if everyone else around you is suffering, you're not really flourishing to the extent that you could be had they were they not suffering.
Wait.
Um,
Yeah. I guess I'm just getting confused. Would you just say like what you take flourishing to be? Just because I don't know what it would be.
like define it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, please.
Yeah. So flourishing is kind of a broader concept
Hmm.
that generally involves living in accordance with reason, for one, but
Okay.
also just supporting all the different levels of well-being that you have, supporting and facilitating your well-being. So,
Okay.
for example, I don't think humans, are the only types of beings that are capable of flourishing. They just have higher levels of flourishing because they have higher levels of well-being.
Mm. Okay. So acting in accordance with reason and like protecting and like keeping your well-being like good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, this acting in accordance with reason thing, that's going to be more specific to humans because, like,
Yes.
plants
Okay.
can't act in
No.
accordance with
No.
reason.
No. No.
But
Y-
plants do have well-beings, at least at a biological level. Plants do have a type of flourishing that they can or exhibit.
Yes.
So, like, at a basic level, flourishing is just going to be, the supporting and facilitating of your well-being. And then when we think of humans specifically, that's going to involve some level of living in accordance with reason.
So would when you say like keeping your like welfare of like I don't know how you word it again, but like your all your health and well-being, like just
Yeah.
keeping it good. Let's say like someone just doesn't like value this at all.
Mhm.
Is it just still going to be wrong objectively just because do you just ground it as in like all my different like organs and stuff just have like they have to function in a way that's good, so I
Yeah.
like ought to just like
So,
keep them.
like, think about it this way. There's like multiple types of wrongs,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
There's gonna be like moral wrongs and there's gonna be non-moral wrongs.
Hmm.
Like for example, if your heart does not pump blood properly,
Hmm.
that's not morally wrong,
No.
but it's still like a type of wrong, right? It's going against its proper functioning. If you get an answer incorrect on a test, that's wrong, right? You did something wrong, but you didn't do something morally wrong.
Yeah.
So it kind of also goes back to this proper functioning of, with humans specifically, because we are capable, and not only just capable, we tend towards rational thinking and rational deliberation. That's also part of our proper functioning.
Yes.
The time when it gets to be in like the moral wrongness territory is when you have an agent that's actually capable of like rational deliberation.
Hmm.
That's when you get who that's making an action. That's when you get into like the moral wrongness
Yeah.
territory. Um,
So like say I'm having like I don't know, I'm just like making my heart not function properly and I'm deliberately doing this. This is just gonna be a moral wrong then?
it kind of depends on the situation.
Hmm.
Like if you, for example, inject yourself with some kind of substance that is gonna like be a detriment to
Yeah.
your cardiac function
Hmm.
or something. Um, like I think it's a type of moral wrong. It's just not the same type of moral wrong as if you were, say like murdering someone. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Because it
it's
just
more
involves another
wrong
human,
directed at yourself.
Yeah. I understand. Okay, and then so so let's say I'm like injecting someone else with that's gonna like affect their
Mhm.
heart, right?
Yeah.
I'm not like should I still be valuing like other people's like biology? You know what I mean? Like in that way?
Yeah.
Is that just going to
Yeah.
be wrong? Because it's not the same as doing it to myself because it's kind of like
Yes.
undermining in
Like
that way. But
if
yeah.
you're to ask me what's worse, um, you know, injecting yourself,
Hmm.
um, with the substance or like injecting someone else,
Yeah.
um, assuming the other person is obviously like not like asking you to do it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm kind of assuming a lack of consent there. I
Yeah.
think that's going to be worse because now you're affecting someone else. I think that's why it's different if you, for example, um, I think it's worse to spike someone else's drink than to spike your own. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're
No. Yeah. I
both
understand.
wrong. They're just different kinds of wrong.
Yeah. Okay. So now we this is where it gets like interesting as well because like I understand all that, but then okay, this first one I have is if someone's brain dead. Like, what would you say? Do you think we can just like unplug them or?
Yeah, so my understanding of brain death is that it's the irreversible
Hmm.
cessation of all neurological functions,
Okay.
meaning that it's not possible for you to recover from that state.
Yeah.
Or it's just not possible. So
Hmm.
I personally have no issue with unplugging patients who are brain dead because there's no possible chance of recovery. I don't know what the point is of keeping them on life support is. It's not going to help them. you know what I mean? They're dead. So like
Yeah.
they have no future. They have, you know, they have no future. Like there's nothing left for them. So I personally have no issue with unplugging brain dead patients because I mean, there's just no chance of recovery for them.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense. I get that.
And
Um.
even further, I just want to add, it's not
Mhm.
even just that there's no chance of recovery. It's that they're like currently in that state. Because like I've been given a hypothetical a few times where it's like if you have a child who was diagnosed with cancer and somehow
Mhm.
you knew for certainty that in a year they were going to die, can you take them off life support? I think that's a different situation because they're not, yes, like we know that there's no chance for recovery, but they still have a year, right? They still have things to do. They can still live their life. Um,
Mhm.
they still have opportunities. A brain dead patient is already in a state where they have no opportunities, they have
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
future. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, I understand that. Okay. So I don't know if you grant animals as like moral patients, but like having this like distinction from animal plants as well. But I assume you do. And if you do, um, how would you like? How can I make this example like specific so it doesn't include having like to value plants in a way? So
Sure.
like their flourishing is different, but like why or I value animals and then not
Maybe let's start with
plants.
what is your conception of a moral patient as opposed to a moral agent?
Yeah, so like they just don't have to have the rationality, but like to be obligated, but like I have the obligation to just protect them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So I think that plants
Hmm.
I like we isolate, pretend animals and humans and everything else doesn't exist, right? We're just
Yeah.
focusing on plants.
Okay.
I think at a basic level, um, they have some type of intrinsic value, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not just because they're alive, but they also have, the ability to flourish. And then if we
Hmm.
think about the world as a whole, like I'm very much an environmentalist, right? I think it's important. I think we have obligations to protect the environment. Um,
Hmm.
protect the ecosystem and things like that.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, my flourishing is directly tied to the flourishing of all the other entities around me.
Yeah.
So at a basic level, yes, like I think we all value plants at a very basic level.
Yeah.
But then you have other things that are being added to the equation, right? Then
Hmm.
you have humans and non-human animals.
Hmm.
Those I value more than plants,
Hmm.
but because of the extra degrees of well-being that they have, right? Past a biological well-being, now they have an experiential well-being, they have a social well-being, etc. And then when you have humans, they have like a rational well-being, so, things like that.
Okay.
So they tend to be prioritized, right?
Hmm.
It's very often the case that you can't save both at the same time, right? You
Hmm.
can't avoid walking on grass for your entire life.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just impossible. So it just comes to a point where, like, yes, like I value plants, but it's so much of a lesser degree that I may care about, like animals and humans that I think in most situations that, stepping on a plant or cutting down a tree is going to be negligible. However, if you're talking about, for example, like cutting down the entire Amazon rainforest, like
Mm.
I think that's wrong. Like I don't think we should be doing that. Even if aside from all the environmental impacts the negative environmental impacts that would have on animals and humans, like I just I see that as wrong, right? I think we
Okay.
still ought to protect the environment around us. I think it's just that we have a hierarchy and like different
Hmm.
prioritizations and we have to be practical.
Okay. So like, what I got from that is so if I step on a plant, right, it's not going to be as
Mhm.
wrong if I'm doing something wrong to a human because all the plant really has is that biological like
Yes.
disposition, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like it's wrong to like such a small degree
Yeah.
that it's negligible,
Oh, okay.
but there's like a tiny, tiny little bit where it's like, okay, like, you know, you're killing a plant, but it's so compared to like everything else around us in the world, it's just negligible at that point.
Okay, so then the difference would be that the animals just have a bit more like due to like sentience and stuff. So you just have to
Yeah,
like yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I understand
yeah.
that. All right. We've oh okay. So like we're getting onto the religion discussion. So what makes you an atheist, and have you always been one?
Yeah, so I grew up, I'll tell you a little bit how I grew up first
Hmm.
because I grew up in a religiously Jewish family.
Okay.
Um, so, like, I was raised around the Abrahamic religions,
Hmm.
right? But specifically Judaism. Since I was born, right? I was born to a religious Jewish family. But since I could think, or at least even since I remember thinking, I never really bought the whole God thing. I
Yeah.
never really understood the whole religion thing. So I consider myself to be a lifelong atheist. I don't
Oh,
remember a
really?
time I was ever a theist, even
Okay.
though I grew up in a very religious family. I
Mhm.
was just never convinced by it. It was always confusing to me. I never understood it. And that's kind of where it was when I was younger, right? We don't always have the critical thinking tools when we're younger to really examine these kinds of topics. When
True.
I was younger, I just didn't understand it. And so if
Mhm.
I didn't understand it, I just kind of, I would ask the adults in my life questions that they wouldn't be able to answer.
Mhm.
And so I'm thinking, like, if you can't answer basic questions about God, why am I supposed to believe in that? Like,
So
that seems
true.
dumb.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
so valid. Yeah.
Right. So like there are lots of like scientific concepts that I don't understand. But
Mhm.
if I ask a question about it, I get like a legitimate answer.
Yeah.
If I ask a question about God, no one has the answer. So
Mhm.
that just it seems at least like I'm never going to say God doesn't exist. It seems unlikely, right? It seems a little bit implausible. And then I started growing up and I had more critical thinking skills, I had more knowledge about the world around me, and I've always also been very interested in like cultures and like anthropology and sociology and
Mm.
stuff like that,
Yep.
and history. I love history. Like, I always joke with people that if I wasn't a forensics major, I'd be a history major.
Oh, really?
um,
Okay.
so learning about the different regions in the world and the way that they treat certain religions, like, it just kind of kept me there. Like, take Christianity, for example.
Mhm.
Christianity is pretty much like a different religion depending on where in the world you are, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's the same Bible,
Mhm.
but they treat the religion differently.
Yep.
And then you take different time periods. Like, if you take the Gothic period versus the Romanesque period, um, things like that, they had a completely different idea of who Jesus was or who God was, or certain religious concepts. And so, if the idea of a religion
Mhm.
is consistently and constantly changing over time and changing based on location, like, there's no consistency. Like, I'm not seeing what it is that I should believe in. Very well, whoa. It very Oh my God, I can't talk. Very may well be the case. There we
Mhm.
go. Very well, holy crap. I already said it. You know what I said. It may be the case that there is some kind of deity, some God,
Mhm.
that there is, but I don't think that it's possible for us as humans to have any kind of grasp on what that is. Every single religion that I've encountered seems like it is mostly, at least mostly, like man-made, based on like a sociological and anthropological perspective.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's what kind of kept me there. But I've also just been an atheist my whole life. You know what I mean?
Okay. Have you like looked into any like specific arguments for God? Like, can be any like cosmological, design, teleological, any of those.
Yeah.
Um, and what would be your favorite if you did have
I've
one?
encountered a few of them.
Mhm.
Um, you know, when I say my favorite,
Mhm.
I'm gonna say that's not my favorite is not gonna be the one I find the most convincing. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
the one that I find the most interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
The one that I find the most interesting is the intelligent design argument.
Mm.
Aspects of like the fine tuning stuff, but
Yes.
specifically like the intelligent design and the like creationism aspect of it.
Mhm.
So I've always found that so interesting because of, how much I love biology and evolution. It just is so interesting to me how someone can look at the human body and say, like, yeah, that was intelligently designed.
Mm.
Because I don't know. To me, it just seems very clear that there are a lot of problems with human bodies that,
Yes.
of course, lots of it is a product of modern day society and the food that we're eating and medical treatments and things like that. I'm not going to say all of that is by design.
Mm.
We have lots of problems with our physiology that have developed over time. But at a basic level, even looking at our genetic code and stuff like that, it
Yeah.
just, I could not understand how that could be intelligently designed. I think it just is more evidence of evolution. And then when it
Yes.
comes to the fine tuning argument stuff, I'll admit I don't know the fine tuning argument super well,
Mhm.
um, enough to like, thoroughly debunk it. But, I found it interesting.
Yeah. That's fair enough. Do you have like any convincing ones you find?
Um,
Convincing?
you know, Not a lot of them have
No.
been super convincing to me.
Mhm.
But I will admit, I think it's important for me to say that, I have not been in many spaces where we've really examined these kinds of arguments,
Yeah.
like you say, like from a premise to conclusion perspective,
Mm-hmm.
I'll admit that I don't have a lot of experience in that.
Okay.
So, like, I haven't found very many of them convincing, but I also haven't had a bunch of exposure to them at the same time.
Yeah, that makes sense. So just the ones you have been exposed to just don't
Yeah,
sit well with you. Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah.
Um, what are your views on veganism?
So, I think that as an ethical framework,
Mm-hmm.
veganism just makes a lot of sense. Like,
Yeah.
if we're taking practicality and pragmatism aside, veganism seems like the right answer to me. Like, it seems
Yeah.
pretty obvious to me that, killing animals and allowing all that suffering and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that is wrong. If it's wrong for humans, I don't necessarily see why it wouldn't be wrong to do that to animals,
Yeah.
considering how similar we are.
And even with
Um,
your like flourishing thing that you just went off
yeah,
of, that like animals have that a bit more moral value, just in not just having like that biological. Um,
precisely,
yeah,
precisely.
absolutely.
Animals are sentient beings that feel, that have emotions, that are complex, that we learn more about all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm personally convinced that there are some higher animals, like take like elephants, and higher primates like chimpanzees and stuff that
Mm-hmm.
genuinely have primitive reasoning abilities,
Yeah.
which I've gotten a lot of flack for. A lot of people disagree with that, but I genuinely think that elephants, dolphins, chimpanzees, etc. They
Yeah.
genuinely have very basic, very primitive, but reasoning abilities. And
Mm-hmm.
it is insane to me that you know people think that it's just okay to kill them and allow them to suffer and perform experiments on them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, as an ethical framework, I think veganism makes sense. When we get into more of a practical standpoint, I think the conversation becomes a little bit more complicated.
Yes.
Is it possible to be vegan in today's society? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Very possible. I have vegan friends that have been doing it for years
Yeah.
and they do it very well. Is it hard to get into?
Yeah.
Also, yes.
Oh, really? Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, like I grew up in a culture where eating meat was a celebratory thing.
Yes.
Like for example, I come from an Argentinian family
Oh, okay.
where having like an asado or like a barbecue
Mm-hmm.
was the answer to every birthday, every celebration, and everything. So getting out of that habit is very difficult. And on
Oh,
top of
yeah.
that, learning how to shop for it is very difficult. Learning how to adapt your diet is very difficult. And then if you also have health issues that you have to consider, which are very diet dependent, that's also very difficult.
I thought you said it
So,
wasn't hard at first.
oh no, no, no,
No, yeah, I was gonna
you
say.
misheard me.
Yeah. No,
No, no,
yeah, yeah,
no.
I
I
agree with
meant
you. Yeah.
it's very hard to get into.
Yeah.
Um, like you know, it's not impossible. It's very doable.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, it's hard to get into because it's like you have to put so much effort into it. You
Yeah.
really have to kind of relearn certain habits and how to navigate life.
Yes.
Um, I think it's worth doing. I think you just have to be at the right point in your life and you have
Mm.
to have enough knowledge to be able to do it. Like my mom, for example, she tried going vegan for a while and then she was so malnourished that like her doctor literally told her that she couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
That's not a problem with veganism. That's a problem with a lack of knowledge of how to
Education. Yeah.
handle being vegan.
Yeah, I
Um,
completely agree.
right. So I think two things can be true that vegan is people should be vegan, but also there needs to be an understanding that it can be hard to be vegan.
Yeah.
Even if it's not impossible. Does that make sense?
No, no, yeah, I literally completely agree. I stopped eating meat, I think 7 months ago now, and my
Mhm.
brother, he went fully vegan, and it's been obviously harder for him, but it's been for both of us to just find those like these like supplements. We need like
Yes,
to
yes.
intake B12, so that was something we had to like learn, and also just different things that, like you said, like malnutrition. You just have to find the right things that you need for your
Yeah.
daily intake, basically, for other
If you do it
things.
right, then amazing.
Yeah,
But it's just hard to do
it's
right.
very hard. Yeah, I agree. What's your view on euthanasia?
So it kind of depends on what context it's being applied.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything intrinsically wrong with euthanasia necessarily, but I think
Mhm.
there are applications of it that can be very, very deeply wrong. Um, a big debate is coming out about it about certain countries that are allowing euthanasia for terminally ill and chronically ill people.
Mhm.
Um, I think there are certain contexts where I would be okay with it, and certain contexts where I would not be okay with it.
What would
There,
they be? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, like for example, If you are a person that has been dealing with a chronic illness for the majority of your life,
Yep.
you are constantly in pain, you are constantly suffering, and you've just been told that there is no recovery. It's
Mhm.
progressed too much, your body is too damaged, you're going into hospice. You know what I mean? You're
Yeah.
getting palliative care. I think it comes to a point where if you know that there is no recovery and that there are no other treatments that you can try, and you are just constantly, constantly suffering, and you also have the mental capacity to make that kind of decision,
Yeah.
I don't think I'm really against that. I
Mhm.
think the ability to make that decision is really important because a lot of the time when you have such horrible diseases,
Yep.
your capacity to make your decision making capacities are also altered.
Yes, I
I
agree.
don't think this option should be allowed for people who have illnesses where they can't make decisions for themselves either, because this is a decision that you have to make with your full reasoning skills. You know what I mean? That's where it gets
Yeah.
complicated.
What about if
Um,
the person like can't make the decision? Like they've just lost the function to just make the
mhm,
decision or even like speak or anything like that.
yeah.
Should it be up to like would you be fine with the doctors? Even if like there's no, chance of them, getting
Mhm.
back to their reasonable state,
I think
would it be fine, do you think?
I think at the beginning, before that even happens, it the most responsible thing to do would be to have some kind of will or some kind of directive
Yeah.
to be able to tell people that, hey, if this ever happens to me where I lose all functioning,
Mhm.
I would like this to happen or I would not like this to happen.
Yeah.
Because I personally think it's very irresponsible and almost like hurtful to have to put that responsibility on your family members if
Yeah.
this is something that you know is going to happen. If it's like a freak accident, well, I'm
Mhm.
not going to blame you. But if you know you're sick and you've been sick for years and you still don't have any kind of advance directive to tell your family what you kind of want, I also think that that's like really weird.
Yeah.
Um, let's just say that they don't have an advance directive for like the sake of the question.
Mhm.
Um, I think it really depends on one, the chance of recovery.
Mhm.
Similar to what I said with the brain dead case, if there's no chance of recovery, I mean, that's going to be different than if there is a chance of recovery.
Yeah.
Two is going to be if maybe there's, have been a previous verbal expression or how well the family members know them.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I've had this conversation with my mom where she doesn't have an advance directive, but she's verbally told me that if anything were to ever happen to her, she's told me what, like, the process that she'd want the family to do for her in regards to treatment.
Mhm.
Um, like you also have to examine what is the relationship with the family members that are also making this decision. If this is a cousin that you haven't seen in 10 years, I don't think they
Yeah.
should be making that decision.
It's
If this
true.
is a parent that you live with that you have an extremely close relationship with, okay, like maybe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's highly context dependent, and I don't think it's the kind of thing that you can say is always okay or is always not okay because of how specific these kinds of situations are.
Yeah. There's
Um,
just so many factors.
yeah. Um, Yeah, so like I think there are situations where I wouldn't be against it,
Mhm.
but I think we have to be very careful about it from a pragmatic perspective.
Yeah.
Um, for things I mentioned about, like, for example, how do you determine if someone has the right decision-making capacities to make that
Mm.
decision?
Mhm.
How do you examine the relationship that a family member has to step in and make that decision for them? What safeguards do we have in place to make sure doctors are not misdiagnosing a neurological condition to where they say, hey, you have no chance of recovery, and then it turns out they actually did. You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay. What about your view on the death penalty? This one's so interesting to me. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm against the death penalty,
Mhm.
and it's for two main reasons.
Okay.
Um, One of them, at a basic level, is going to be for pragmatic reasons
Mhm.
because, I can only speak to America. I don't know what it's like in the UK. But at least in America, there have been way, way, way too many innocent people that have been executed.
Yes. Mhm.
Um, it's like just like deeply, deeply not okay,
Yeah.
and baffles me every time it happens because it's insane to me. Like
Mhm.
the amount of innocent people that are in prison and then the amount of innocent people on death row who are going to be executed and have been executed. It's not okay. I'm not
Yeah.
willing to be the kind of person that would take that chance and say, hey, like this guy did something really bad.
Mhm.
Let's put him on death row, even though I know there are three other innocent people on death row, just so we can get this one guy. I don't believe in that. Um,
What about
Aside
if you have like this guy done it, you caught it like all on camera,
Right, right. So if I know for a fact that this person did such a heinous crime that they're being considered for the death penalty.
Mhm.
Um, I'm still against it. And the reason for that is simply because I think death is the easy way out. If you did something so bad that you're being considered for the death penalty, you deserve to like rot in a cell for the rest of your life and think about what you did.
Yeah.
Like it would almost be a mercy to kill them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't believe in that either. So,
That's fair enough, to be
um,
fair. Yeah, I think many people would
yeah, like
take that same stance.
right. So, like if you have someone who, is like a serial rapist,
Hmm.
um, and they're being, considered for the death penalty, serial murderer, rape, whatever, they're being considered for the death penalty.
Yeah.
Um, like no, like you have to think about what you did for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Um, you have to, be in prison for the rest of your life. And with everything that comes with being in prison, I'm not going to let you just walk away and like die. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm, you know, this just, it also feels like a lack of justice as well.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. Justice isn't really being served if you're just like gonna kill them.
Right, right, right.
We're now on to abortion. Um, what's your main argument for abortion that you run?
So it really goes down to that flourishing thing
Yeah.
is I just don't think, I mean, it's obvious that abortions are not good for the flourishing of the child.
Yeah.
Um, but even deeper, I don't think it's good for the mother either.
Hmm.
There's a big idea that like, oh, pro-lifers only care about the kid, and then when it's born, they don't care. Well, I think that's not fair. I don't think that's a fair representation. I don't
No.
think it's even accurate empirically. Um, but to speak for myself at least, is I do care about mothers, and I truly do not think that abortions are good for them. It's not good for your flourishing to like,
Yeah.
I don't want to use inflammatory language. It's not good for you to have an abortion, is all I'm going to
No, yeah,
say.
I understand. So what do you do here when there's like kind of like two people being affected by flourishing? Is there like any like calculus you
Yeah.
take?
So this question comes up usually when I talk about like a medical exception.
Okay.
What if the mother's going to die if she continues her pregnancy?
Yes.
Well, in that case, I think it's justified. I would consider it similar to like self-defense. You know what I mean? If someone's attacking you,
Yeah, it's
and
like
you think
proportionate,
you're
yeah.
going to die, can you, kill the other person to save your life? I think that's okay. And the reason for that in the case of pregnancy is kind of what I was talking to you about with the plants and the animals and the humans, like this hierarchy, right?
Hmm.
With different levels of well-being. When the detriment of flourishing, what's at stake is kind of equalized, right? One has to die. Is it going to be the mother or the fetus?
Yeah.
That's equalized. Okay, that's a primary consideration. But we, we can't think about that anymore because they're equalized either way. It's going to be the same. Then you move on to the second part of the hierarchy, which is okay, what kinds of well-beings do we have at stake here? Is it just a biological, or is it an experiential, a social, and a rational? So then at that point, I would default to the mother simply because she has more complex levels of well-being and welfare, compared to the fetus, and both of them have an equal amount of flourishing at stake, um,
That's
aside
really
from it
interesting.
self-defense.
Because
Um,
yeah, I
yeah.
used to like think, why do we actually even give like, well, most people give that like
Mhm.
medical case? Because like, what is the difference really? Like, let's say the mother's gonna die, right? And it's like many people will be like, oh, okay, then it's fine. We can, kill the fetus if the mother's gonna die. But then I just like always question like, why though? Like, what is the fetus
Yeah.
like lacking that has like what has the mother got that's like kind of more valuable in that sense? Because you could even just make the argument that the fetus has got like more time to live, like, and
Mhm.
that way. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, like I think fetuses and adults have equal worth insofar as they both deserve to be protected.
Okay.
But they're not the same in that, one has, for example, certain, you know, well-beings in regard to like having social relationships, being
Yeah.
able to think, and one might not. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, so are they both worthy of protection? Yes. That's why I think that if the detriment to flourishing, what's at stake is not equal, okay, well, we want to protect flourishing. That's the priority. So we're going to protect the one that has, their life at stake.
Yeah.
But if they both have their life at stake, then it's not just like flipping a coin. Like,
Hmm.
no, like we have other things that we can also think about.
Yeah. What about if, let's say, the fetus is gonna cause like the mother just like bodily damage? It's not gonna kill her, but it's going to cause like maybe a significant difference in her life for the rest of her life. What would
Sure.
you say there?
I think it really depends on that situation. I
Yeah.
can conceive of cases where even if she won't die, the bodily harm would be enough to like pass a certain threshold. I
Okay.
would say like, okay, if that's what she wants, I
Mhm.
think it's justified. I think there
Yeah.
are also cases where the harm would not pass that kind of threshold.
Okay.
Um, I think that's case dependent, and that's also the kind of situation where I might even default to like medical professionals, right? Like I'm not a
Yes.
doctor,
Mm.
so there are certain medical evaluations that I'm not qualified to make. And so if a doctor says something like, "Look, if she carries through this pregnancy, she won't die, but the
Mhm.
rest of her life is going to be such at a severe detriment that she can never work again. She can't function as she did,
Yeah.
um, and everything. Like she's gonna be bedridden for the rest of her life. Like, okay, like that does sound like a severe detriment to her
Yeah.
flourishing to me. So
Yeah. Yeah.
there are certain cases that I think there is a threshold.
Mhm.
Um, where that threshold is, I don't think I can give you an answer. That's kind of like a Sorites paradox kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but there are cases that I can conceive of where it would be okay. I don't think it has to be a life or death thing.
Mhm.
Um, I just think it is most of the time. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. What do you think about do you give a rape? Like,
Hmm.
you know?
So I don't.
No.
Um, However, that doesn't necessarily mean that there are no cases ever where a woman could get an abortion because she was raped.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because all of these exceptions that I'm kind of outlining all go down to one thing, right? Is the detriment to the flourishing.
Mhm.
So if hypothetically we conjure up a case where this woman is so psychologically damaged and physically damaged from this rape that giving birth is going to be such a high enough detriment to her flourishing that it would pass that kind of threshold, hey, like maybe the abortion is something that I would consider like being justified. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It just happens to be, it's not because she was raped. It's
Mhm.
because the detriment to her flourishing
Flourishing. Yeah.
is at such a level.
Yeah.
Um, the fact of the matter is just that in most cases of that situation, the detriment to flourishing just does not pass that threshold.
Mhm.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
No,
So,
that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So I wouldn't even call it just like a rape exception. It's just like if
It's just a flourishing
let's
exception
say
if it
passes
passes
that
the
threshold. Yeah,
threshold.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like
That.
when people say like, well, what about like a mental health exception? I'm like, no, like generally no,
Mhm.
right? But there are mental health issues that I could imagine would pass a certain threshold
Yeah.
that would be really bad.
Mhm.
Um, like people will present a case like, well, what if you have like a 14-year-old who was raped
Yeah.
and wants an abortion, and hypothetically, the doctor says that it would be safe for her to do so. I can conceive of cases where I would still be like, hey, like that might psychologically damage her for the rest of her life to the
Mm.
point where there is a severe detriment to flourishing, or be like, okay, like, you know, it comes to a point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Um,
understand.
so it really just depends on how badly it's going to affect the mother. It just happens to be the case that in the vast, vast, vast majority of abortions, her staying pregnant and giving birth is not going to be the kind of detriment that's going to pass that threshold.
Okay. So, do you take it on like the current point in time? Because like you could say the fetus is gonna have like all of these things in the future that you would like
Mhm.
give obviously the same value to, but because it doesn't have it right now, then the mother kind of has that exception.
I think that ties into also like the self-defense thing.
Okay.
Um, is I think we have the right to save our life. Like
Mhm.
I haven't been presented a situation, like it's possible that's not absolute, right? I haven't
Mhm.
been presented a situation where it would be wrong for you to save your life as long as you're not like if someone else is threatening you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um like what I mean is I haven't been presented a situation where self-defense would not be justified. Um,
Mhm.
so I consider it to be similar to self-defense, right? Obviously, the fetus is not like attacking her, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it's like you have now a health concern um, that you have to treat as a health concern. Um, so even if we have, if it comes to a point where, for example, you have like a 30-week-old fetus and the mother is in critical condition,
Mhm.
you're not going to have an abortion at 30 weeks. You would have an early induction. You would have a C-section.
Yeah.
So all of these times where we're considering a medical exception for an abortion, those are all times like before you can even consider a premature birth. Um, and
Hmm.
at that point, you know, certain things like sentience are like extremely unlikely to be there. Um,
Okay.
so like, does that make sense? Like, if you have a, you know, 27-week-old fetus and now you're in danger and you're gonna die, you're
Hmm.
not getting an abortion. You're giving
Yeah.
birth.
Yeah. 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 No, that
Like,
makes sense. So you
right?
don't.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So you don't take like acts to be just inherently right and wrong just based off the acts itself. It just kind of just comes into flourishing.
Mostly, yes. There are like a few exceptions where if you think of like rape, for example, like
Yeah.
yes, like part of the reason that rape is wrong is because of flourishing.
Hmm.
But like also like rape is wrong in and of itself. Like
Yeah.
I can't conceive of a situation where raping someone would not be wrong. Like I genuinely like, cannot conceive. Like I think it's just always wrong.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So it's just dependent
yeah,
on whatever happens, I guess, the action. Yeah, that
yeah,
makes
yeah, yeah.
sense. What's one thing you think people misunderstand about your viewpoint on abortion?
About my viewpoint specifically,
Hmm.
a lot of the objections that I get is that it's just like, well, why should I care about biological flourishing?
Yes.
Like, I feel like that's just a misunderstanding of the the idea
Mm.
because it's not just like, oh, like it's alive, so we must protect it. That's
Hmm.
like really not it. If that were the case, then I would say that it's murder every time you step on grass or cut down a tree. Like,
Yeah.
like
Exactly. Yeah.
it's just a misunderstanding. I think it's so much deeper than just like, oh, you have biological flourishing. No, it's like you're on the track to actualize capacities like sentience and rational deliberation that we ought all care about and we ought all protect based on this idea of flourishing. You know what I mean? You have
Yeah.
to flourish biologically in
Hmm.
order to get to that point. And for all those people that care about sentience, right?
Hmm.
I don't understand why you wouldn't care about helping people reach sentience. You know what I
That's
mean?
so true.
So it's mostly just all of these. They think it's just about biology. Like it is about biology, but it's yes
Do you
and
do
there's
you
so much more than that.
It's just what I was thinking. Do you not think it's like some type of contradiction when people say that? Because like they're already doing it themselves. They're like asking the question, why ought I value like biology, right? Or
Mhm.
like the biological function,
Yes,
like keeping
I
it well.
think it,
But like they're doing it right now, you know?
yes, I think it's a little ironic because most of the sentience, I don't want to say all of them because there's some
Hmm.
smart ones out there. Most of the sentience debaters that I come across, their whole point just goes back down to brain parts.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, why do I care about a brain? Like, that's also just biology. Like,
Yeah.
we're both arguing about biology. Like, it just, like, almost everyone that I talk to just comes down to, okay, I don't really care about sentience. I care about having a brain. Like,
Well, I just
like,
I don't know. Yeah, it just
it
doesn't
just
really
feels
make
ironic
sense.
to me.
Yeah, some things are just so self like undermining. It just makes zero sense. Like for
Yeah,
me.
like there's some people who, all acknowledge that know their philosophy really well, and it
Hmm.
doesn't just go back down to brain parts, but most of the people that I've come across are just like, yeah, like I don't even care if you're sentient or not. You just have to have a brain. Gross.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I guess. Yeah, that is like most of the pro-choices that I see as well. To be fair. What's one thing you've learned from pro-choice advocates?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, like I have not been pro-life my whole life. Um, I was pro-choice for the majority of my life. So
Oh, okay.
I have the perspective in that I know what it's like to be pro-choice.
Yeah.
Um, and at least for a normal person, like I know what the intention is to be pro-choice.
Hmm.
Um, so, you know, from having been pro-choice, I've obviously learned like what the mindset behind that is.
Hmm.
Um, Having then turned pro-life and then debated other pro-choicers, you have to understand, like, put yourself in their shoes, right? For
Hmm.
most of them, they're not, they don't see it as something wrong.
Yeah.
So obviously they're not going to advocate against it. It would be one thing if they're like, "Oh yeah, I totally know abortion is wrong, but I still think you should be able to do it." I think that's like extremely weird.
Hmm.
But most of them genuinely just don't see it as wrong.
Yeah, they don't.
They see not having access to it as wrong. So when you put yourself in their shoes, they also, just like I am, they are advocating for something that they truly believe in.
Hmm.
they truly and honestly think that, you know, they're doing the right thing. And you have to at least give them credit for that, right?
Yeah.
It's not just that they're like, "Oh, I like murdering babies." No, like they actually like care about women's
Yeah.
rights and things like, having personal freedoms, and they just genuinely don't see it as wrong. So you have to also understand that they're not evil people. You guys just disagree on, whether something is wrong or right.
Yeah, that's true. So what kind of convinced you to go pro-life then?
Yeah, so um it started with, when I met, my friends who I debate with,
Mhm.
people like Kojo and Honey and
Mhm.
John and people like that. I think you also did
Yeah.
an episode with Kay too.
Yeah.
Um so, I was pro-choice when I met them, and I wanted to start debating with them. But by the time I had met them, they were all pro-life. And so they were debating on the pro-life side, but I still wanted to hang out with them, right? They're still my
Yeah.
friends. I want to hang out with my friends. So I was like, you know what? Can I just pretend to be pro-life for a little bit, and debate with you? Um, so there was like a good 6 months where I would debate with them on their lives. I would debate the pro-life side, but I was actually just pro-choice. And through that, it was honestly, I think, the best way for me to understand the issue,
Yeah.
because arguing from a different side, you have to understand that side, right? So it
Mm.
helped me understand the pro-life position so much more than I ever had. Because
Yeah.
when I was pro-choice, I didn't really understand what it meant to be pro-life. I didn't understand why people were pro-life. I just thought that they didn't care about women's rights or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, and then I had to put myself in their shoes. I had to understand the argumentation. And I realized that I had answers to every single pro-choice argument that I had come across at the time,
Yeah.
where I had answers. Like I had ways to debunk them. I pointed out all of their inconsistencies or the absurdities that they fell on. And then
Mhm.
when I would try to debate pro-choice with my other friends, I would run into like walls where I'd be like, I don't
Mhm.
know where to go from here because I am making some kind of inconsistency, or I am committing myself to some kind of absurdity.
Mhm.
And it came to a point where I was just like, wow, like I'm really good at debating pro-life. I haven't run into any issues with it. I'm really shitty at debating pro-choice. I have run into so many issues debating it. And I'll call my pro-choice friends and be like, what argument do you run? Because I'm really struggling, and like I feel like, you know, if this is truly the right side, right, pro-choice is
Yeah.
correct, then why am I struggling so much to be successful with it?
Mhm.
And I wouldn't be able to really, like, I couldn't, that was just kind of it, where I kind of examined, like, if you have two sides
Mhm.
and one of them has not been able to be debunked
Mhm.
and one of them has, like, I mean, which side, like, which side are you
Yeah.
gonna go with?
Yeah. Yeah.
So then after like I don't even know how long it was, at least a few months of me debating that, I kind of just turned agnostic because I was like, I can't in good faith continue to call myself pro-choice if
Mhm.
I'm questioning it so strongly. So
Yeah.
I turned agnostic. And I was like that for a very long time. I continued doing what I was doing. And what held me back the most was actually the rape exception, where it just felt like so gross of me
Mhm.
to say
Yeah.
that like rape victims can't have abortions. Like it just felt like, ugh, like
I
I
think
don't want to
most
say
people
that
do
to
feel like
people,
that.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I talked it through with some people, and it's really just this rational deliberation. Like I'm trying to remain unbiased. I'm trying to take my emotions out of it.
Mhm.
What logically makes the most sense?
Mhm.
And I ended up just coming out of it pro-life. So that was
Yeah.
it was a process over like I want to say like a year of turning
Oh wow.
from pro to pro-life. But like it took a really long time, but
Yeah.
it was through understanding both sides that if I if you're really successful doing one, and every time you debate the other, like no matter what you do, there's some kind of answer.
Mhm.
Like what else are you gonna do?
Yeah. Exactly. You just like debunking yourself. Um, with I don't know. You might be able to explain this to me. I've always like found it so confusing. I only thought about it because you just mentioned it. You know when you either find like a contradiction or an absurdity in a view, right?
Mhm,
I'm totally fine with the contradiction, right? Two things can't be true at the same time, like it's false. But
mhm.
with absurdity, it feels so subjective to me. Like when does it become
Sure, sure,
an
sure.
absurdity? Like I don't understand that.
So every view, I think, will eventually fall to some kind of absurdity.
Mhm.
Um, at some point, right?
Yeah.
It might take a while to get there. You might have to have some like really niche philosophical knowledge, but
Yeah.
at some point, there's no like perfect view, at least in my opinion. Like I'm sure at
Mhm.
some point someone could give me some reductio to my argument and I'd be like, okay, like I have to bite that bullet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, the point when it becomes so absurd that you really just have to discredit the entire argument are a couple points. Is one, when it's the kind of absurdity that like literally could happen in our society, like a practical absurdity. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Where if we pass a law with this kind of view, like holy shit, society would collapse. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
okay. Okay, yeah, that
The
makes
first the
sense.
first thing is where do you have an absurdity that's realistic and practical and something like that?
Okay,
The
that makes sense.
second is first of all, like this is a little weird, but I'll explain it first, like how quick you get there.
Mhm.
Like, if, for example, you present to me your argument, I
Mhm.
ask one question and you're already saying something absurd, there something weird is happening
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah.
Something strange is happening where it should not get that absurd that quick.
Yeah.
And the other thing is just if you have an absurdity that, you know, you got there, maybe it wasn't very quick and maybe it's not very realistic, but it comes to a point where literally every single person you ever talk to is like, holy crap, that's like the most absurd thing that I've ever seen. And it just does not match the intuitions
Yeah.
of like anyone. It's so out there. And it also comes to a point where you want your argument to capture the intuitions of people. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You want it to be intuitive. If you have an aspect of your argument that no one can sympathize with,
Mhm.
it comes to a point, right? There are some
Yeah.
absurdities where it's controversial, where some people would be fine biting that bullet. And then there
Mhm.
are some absurdities where literally no one will, except for
Yeah.
you. You
Yeah,
have
yeah,
to
yeah.
like examine like, what am I doing right now? Am I biting this bullet to stay consistent, or do I actually believe that?
Yeah, I guess it makes sense. But then like what if like the bullet they're biting, right, is like
Hmm.
just actually true? Like I don't know how to explain it, but like say no one else takes their view, but their
Hmm.
view's right. So like for example, imagine the first like pro-lifer. Someone could be
Sure.
like let's say like everyone's pro-choice, and then someone's debating like the first ever pro-life, and they're like, oh, this doesn't meet like the intuitions of every other person, so this is just like an
Yeah.
absurdity. You know what I mean? That's like
No,
the
I
only
get
thing that
it.
comes into my head. Yeah.
It very may like I can imagine a kind of situation like that.
Hmm.
I don't have like an amazing answer for you because I agree that an absurd like discrediting an argument based on an absurdity is a lot less shaky than discrediting it based on like a logical
Yes.
flaw, right?
Yeah.
I can agree with you on that.
Hmm.
Um, when it comes to something like say like the first pro-lifer or something like that,
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know. Like I think we have certain I think people have certain intuitions that they may not even realize that they have.
Mm.
Like for example, say everyone is pro-choice except for this one pro-lifer.
Hmm.
Or it may well be the case that a bunch of these pro-choicers actually do have pro-life intuitions and they just haven't realized it yet.
Realized it. That's a
Um,
good point. Yeah.
yeah, because I think generally we all have the same intuitions.
Hmm.
It's just a matter of understanding those intuitions,
Yeah.
um, and getting to that kind of point of introspection.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
It's just like uncovering them. Yeah.
okay.
And
That's
understanding
kind
them.
of the only answer I can give you. I agree that it's not on the same level as like an inconsistency, but
Yeah.
it's, you know, it comes to a point.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand.
It
Um.
comes to a point where if you're like, yeah, like under my view, like hypothetically, if it was good for society, we could just rape every kid. Like, no, like that's that's bad.
Yeah. I understand.
And you'll be surprised how many people have actually said that to me.
No way.
Um, yes, it's like a one of those like utilitarian
Oh.
views. It's a very specific one. But it's like, yeah, like you can, if it's good for society, if it provides the most utility, you can do whatever you want. Like, no, like you should not be able to
Yeah.
do whatever you want.
The
Um,
formal, the formal like utilitarian argument is so bad. Like it literally leads to so many like absurdities. Like gang
yeah,
rape is literally just like justified. Like just the
that's why I kind
basic
of laugh
utilitarianism.
when I think about my old debate tournaments and we would use utilitarianism as like a value framework for our
Y-
cases.
yeah.
'Cause I mean, I didn't know any better at the time, but
Of
it's also
course. Yeah.
like we're also debating politics. We're not debating like
Mm,
what is the most moral. We're debating like policy issues.
true.
So it's also like it also kind of makes sense. It just makes me laugh because it's a little bit ironic.
Yeah. My question would be: so you take obviously the objective stance on morality and moral propositions. I understand that, but let's say because I was thinking about this as well because obviously I do as well. But if you have someone who just kind of believes like morality is subjective, right, and they come up and it's all about like their preferences, and then you come into the question of like, why should I
Mhm.
value your preferences? Like, do you think like that debate is just really like unproductive if someone, or debate just in general is unproductive if they don't ground their morals objectively? Because it's like it just always falls down to the question of like, why should I value your preferences? No.
I think it depends how it's argued because I've had lots of debates with people with subjectivists that were very productive because it wasn't simply like, well, it's just my preferences. It was,
Hmm.
they had better reasoning than that. You know what I
Oh,
mean? It,
okay.
it wasn't so shallow.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's very possible to have a productive conversation with someone who believes that, morals are subjective and everything is mind dependent and stuff like that. Um,
Okay.
because especially when you're having like a normative discussion about, say, abortion or something, you don't always have to get into whether morality is objective or subjective. I've had plenty of debates where I just kind of granted that morality was subjective for the sake of the debate. And I was like, okay, but we still haven't finished the abortion issue. You know what I mean? Just because morality is subjective doesn't mean now all of a sudden that we should let people rape other people. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it 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 really is just depends how it's presented. If someone says, "Well, I think abortion is, justified just because I think it is or because that's how I feel," like, okay, I can't really do much with that. Like if
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But if someone's like, "I think it's justified because of certain bodily autonomy principles or because of sentience principles or
Hmm.
something like more substantial than just it's my preferences, then I think it's very possible to have a productive conversation on those grounds.
Yeah, I guess I see where you're coming from. But wait, let's just say you have like two people and they both think like morality is subjective, right?
Hmm.
Do you think you're ever, and let's say they're just, I don't know, debating on if murder's right. One person thinks it is, one person thinks it isn't. Both,
Hmm.
do you not just think like both views are just going to come down to like both as justified as each other's, right?
It could, but I can also imagine that because I also used to be a subjectivist, so I'm also like I kind of understand the mindset.
Yeah.
Is it can also just be like, you know, let me convince you why you should think this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, let me
If you can
convince
convince
you,
them, yeah, it makes sense.
right? Like, if I'm talking to a pro-choicer who thinks morality is subjective, I would just kind of be like, I'm not going to convince you that not morality, that abortion is objectively wrong.
Hmm.
I'm going to convince you why you should think abortion is wrong. You
Okay.
know what I
Yeah, that
mean?
makes sense actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I get that. Um, what do you think makes a productive debate versus an unproductive one?
I think a lot of it has to do with the intention that you have going into the debate.
Yeah.
Um, Number one is just going to be intention. Are you intending to go in there to make your opponent look bad,
Yeah.
and to kind of seem superior to them? Or are you
Mhm.
intending to go into the debate to come to some level of understanding um, of another person's perspective,
Yeah.
uh, type of situation? I think the intention is the most important part. And then it also just comes to a level of respect. It's
Mhm.
very, very hard to have a productive conversation when you're someone is disrespecting you or you're disrespecting someone else.
Yeah.
Or it's just, you know, it's just extremely difficult. And I
Yeah.
think back to like, for example, my debate tournament days. No, the most unproductive debates that I've had at debate tournaments are the ones where the other person wasn't even really listening. They were just kind of assuming what I was going to say and then responding to that as well. So maybe their
Yeah.
intention is not necessarily to make me look bad, but they're not even putting in the effort to really listen.
That's a
Because
good
maybe I
point.
have something unique to say that you haven't heard before, but you're just assuming what it is. You know what I mean? I have plenty of
Mhm.
conversations with pro-choicers who will say something like, yeah, but there's this thing about like Republicans and you guys always. I'm like, stop. What do you mean, you guys? I'm not a
Yeah.
Republican. Or, they come in trying to be very respectful and, nice. And then they're like, yeah, but like, just because I don't follow your religion doesn't mean I should be pro-life. They're like, well, what religion? I'm not religious. Like, you
Yeah. Everyone
know what I mean?
thinks pro-lifers are like religious, don't they?
Yes, and so it comes to a point where it's also you have to actually be willing to listen to the other person instead of just assuming what they're going to say.
Yeah.
Like it would be unfair of me to say like, "Oh, well, like you just think abortion is okay because you don't even know what an abortion is."
Mhm.
Right? Well, no, like most pro-choicers know what an abortion is. Like that wouldn't be fair of me to say.
Yeah.
So it's not fair to go into a debate assuming what someone is going to say, not even listening to their responses and then just responding to what you think they said. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that's really the distinction.
Mhm. Yeah. What's your main goal with debating abortion? Is it just to like kind of convince as many people for the pro-life position?
Yeah, so there's a couple of reasons why I do it,
Mhm.
okay? Because there have been a lot of times where I've considered stopping just because of how ridiculous the internet is.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Um, because it's you have to understand, debating abortion on TikTok is so wildly different than when I did debate at tournaments.
Mm,
Um, it's like literally two different activities. Like
really.
they're just entirely different.
Mhm.
Um, so like when it comes to this online debate space, um, aside from the fact that I just want to hang out with my friends because I enjoy debating with them, because that is an aspect of it. I
Yeah.
mean, people who know me know that I really only debate with my friends. I don't like go on to like strangers panels anymore.
Mhm.
I used to do that. I just have no interest in it anymore because I just, you know, it's just I don't have any interest in it anymore.
Yeah.
But I still do it. Aside from the fact that I want to hang out with my friends, is because this is an issue that I do care about, and I think it's important to offer different perspectives
Mhm.
because, for example, like I'm kind of a unique pro-lifer in that I am an atheist. I am not a Republican. Um, I'm not who you think of when you think of a pro-lifer. I'm also a woman. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
So
know. Yeah.
usually when people think pro-lifer, they think Christian, Trump supporter, man.
Man.
I
Yeah.
am the opposite of all of those things. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, it's also important, I think, for other people to hear that people can hold a position that may traditionally be held by a certain group of people and also not be a part of that group of people.
Yeah.
Um, and not even about the fact that it's about abortion, but it's that, like, for example, you can have a Democrat that holds some Republican views, or you
Mhm.
can have a conservative that maybe has, you know, leftist ideals about social programs specifically. Like, it's really
Mhm.
important, I think, for other people to understand that every person has unique beliefs and you can't just lump everyone into the same group because that's not
Exactly.
productive. You know
It's
what I
just
mean? It doesn't
yeah. It's just
get you any
stereotyping, isn't it? Like it just comes down to
exactly.
people just oversimplifying and having fixed ideas on people. Yeah.
Exactly. So even more of a bigger picture from just the abortion issue, which I do care about, like I think people should understand that like it's probably wrong to have an abortion.
Mhm.
Further than that, it's like I think it's important for people to learn how to talk to people. It's
Yes.
important for people to learn how to debate people. It's
Mhm.
important for people to learn how to listen to someone else. Like I've always told everyone that I think it should be a requirement for people, kids in like elementary school or middle school and high school to have like one semester of debate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I genuinely think that that should be a requirement because of how much it helped me in my
Mhm.
growth and development as a person and critical thinking skills that I think also I have an obligation to provide that to other people when they come up on a panel and like they'll come out learning something, not
Mhm.
just about abortion, but about how to think about things. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
No.
Because they'll
Yeah.
take that with them throughout the rest of their life in every other position that they have. Maybe they don't rethink their abortion position, but they rethink maybe a different political position because they have
Mhm.
a new perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That is so true. My last question would be, do you debate abortion outside of like TikTok, like just family, friends, anything like that?
Mhm. So I don't.
Mhm.
Um, it would come up very rarely at, back when I did like debate on like outside of the online space. It was not very common. Um, I don't, I'm not really active on other social media platforms.
Mhm.
Um, I did debate a lot on Discord a while ago, but
Yeah.
I got really tired of that really quickly because people, I don't want to like trash people, so I'm trying to be very careful with what I say, but people on Discord kind of treat it more like a sport, and
Yeah.
I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
Um, so it's not very organic.
Mhm.
So I'm not really active on any other social media platforms. People in my life, my personal life, almost everyone has no idea that I'm pro-life.
Yeah.
Um, so this is not something that I tend to talk to with
Mhm.
people in my life, which I mean I've just come to peace with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, maybe that'll change someday. But yeah, like TikTok is at this moment in time the only space that I debate abortion specifically, but I've dabbled in other areas in the past. Um, I started out for like most of my life being a political debater. Abortion is still, I want to say, in the grand scheme of things, still very new to me,
Yeah.
um, timeline wise.
Mhm.
Um,
So you
so
don't
yeah,
really debate politics anymore, do you?
um, not as much as I did,
Mhm.
because of course, primarily I do not do in-person debate tournaments anymore
Yeah.
as much as I wish I did. That's just kind of, I'm too old now. But I don't, simply because I don't really have a political space. Like I don't have a community that is politics driven
Yeah.
as much as like my friends, for example, are like abortion debate driven. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've been on Discord servers before that were very political, and it's Discord. It never ends well. So,
No, yeah.
um, I would love to join a community that did, political debates on TikTok and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, like I would be totally open to doing that. I just don't have that right now. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah, that's fair enough. Well, that is like all the questions I've had now. We've went through it. I'm not sure how long it's actually been, but I think it's been over an hour.
Yeah, it's been
Um,
like I think an hour and a half.
yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for watching, guys, and thank you, Bobo, for coming on.
Of course. This was so much fun.
It was.